You're listening to the Mississippi Outdoors Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Wyatt. Got a question for you Mississippians. How many types of dolphins do we claim in our state? Do we have manatees in Mississippi? We're going to learn those answers and more today with Dr. Holley Muraco from the Mississippi State University Coastal Research Center.
Mississippi Outdoors is sponsored by Entergy Mississippi. Entergy is building a stronger and cleaner grid to power a brighter future and protect our great outdoors for generations to come.
You're listening to the Mississippi Outdoors Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Wyatt. Today we get to learn about marine mammals from an expert, Dr. Holley Muraco with the MSU Extension Service down on the coast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. So good to be here.
Yeah, and I said Extension Service. Let me get it right. Coastal Research and Extension Center with MSU on the coast, right?
That is correct. Yes. Technically, I'm with MAPHIS, and Mississippi State, they get all, very detailed with all of that, but Mississippi State is good.
Yeah. So just surface level for those listening that might not know, what is going on kind of throughout the year at the Coastal Research and Extension Center?
That is a great question, and I think we're one of the best kept secrets in the whole state. We are involved in so many coastal projects, from sharks to marine mammals to ecology and restoration, you name it. It seems like we're in the middle of it.
And I was thinking before you got here, I was thinking, most of us Mississippians, land lovers, most of us, and we don't think, when we think of wildlife in Mississippi, we never think of a dolphin.
Yep.
Or marine mammals, but that's under the same umbrella, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And what's so crazy is Mississippi, literally the Mississippi Sound in our state waters, we have one of the largest populations of dolphins in all of North America, right there, right off our coast.
Really? I guess that makes sense. I had the experience others have, like if you're in the hotel there in Biloxi, and you're on a certain floor,
you can't help but see it.
You look out, and there they are.
There they are. They are sort of almost urban dolphins. They live in our coastal environment. They're, generations and generations have been living there, growing up with our fishermen, with our recreational boaters. And they just sort of like, well, we're here too. So
yeah, they're here.
Yeah.
You're here, for example, today, like in Jackson. And what did bring you, other than coming here for the show, what did bring you here?
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm doing a lecture, the noon lecture at the museum today here in Jackson. I'm so excited to be able to share some of the things that I've been doing, some of the work I'm trying to do, some of the things I've been doing. It's good.
A lecture like that, when you give those, just kind of give me I know you can't either give it away or go through all of it, but today, for example, like what's the gist and what's the message? So
for me, I spent most of my career, I'm from Mississippi. I am from Potts Camp, Mississippi. So most of my career has been away from my home state. And so I went from being this small town farm kid to becoming, a world-known marine mammal researcher. And so really today is about sort of showing how that progress happened. And then the reason why I'm so happy to be able to be back in Mississippi. And now with all the knowledge that hopefully I can bring, and I'm ready to see our Mississippi kids grow up and know they can be marine biologists.
Yeah. Isn't that cool? Yeah. So that term of like full circle, someone will say, yeah, my life has really kind of gone full circle.
Absolutely gone full circle.
It absolutely applies to you, doesn't it?
And I'm so happy to be home. So happy.
Yeah. Potts Camp, grew up there. How did all this kind of get started from Potts Camp to marine mammal research? How'd that get started?
Well, it's sort of a fun story. Grew up, that was home. My family lived there. We'd been there for generations. We can barely even remember when we weren't there. Big, giant, extended family all there. And you don't leave home. Like that's one of those cultures where you just stay put. And, but I say my parents were, and they always laugh when I say this, they were closet hippies. And my sister and I, they sort of told us, they never, ever discouraged us from dreaming big. And, and it was, I really attribute a lot to them and their belief that, hey, why not? you want to do, chase a crazy dream, then go chase a crazy dream. But as a kid who loved animals, that was like life for me, loving, between the farm and everything else, wildlife, you name it. I grew up hunting with my dad. We had quail dogs, There was no better place for me than to out there, with the dogs and hunting for quail. So they said, well, if you're smart enough, you should be a veterinarian because that's where you can actually make money and work with animals. And so I thought, okay, I guess that's what I should do. So I went to Mississippi State as a dairy science major, fast track into vet school. And then someone said, hey, you really should have something interesting on your application to vet school. Like cows are cool and whatever, but that would really help you stand out. And so literally just for random fun, I thought, dolphins are interesting. I had seen dolphins before, like on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, but I'd never really thought about it as something. And so I applied to an internship at Walt Disney World with their dolphins at Epcot. And I didn't even think for a second I would get it. But for whatever reason, the farm kid, dairy science major, they said, come be one of 6 people to spend 6 months at Epcot.
Wow. That's incredible.
And I interviewed, I worked hard, but honestly, I really am still a bit in awe that they picked me. So they picked me, and that was the first time I left home. And there was a lot of tears. It was really scary to be dropped off in Orlando to work at Disney. There was many, many moments where I'm like, I need to run. I need to go. This is too much. But I stuck it out. And again, my parents being you're okay, it's okay. You can do this. And that obviously changed my life.
Sure. Yeah. And here we are.
So yeah, I came back home, back to Mississippi State because the internship sort of broke up my undergraduate program. But I came back to Mississippi State and switched from dairy science to biology. Okay. And I was like, okay, this way, I don't think I want to go right to vet school. I think I want to, there's a whole cool world out there with working with animals, and that isn't tied to veterinary, medicine. And that's what I did. Got a biology degree. And then off I went back to Florida to work. Yeah.
I was reading some too about, some of the things you've been involved with. Alaska.
Yes.
Was a trip to Alaska. So Potts Camp,
yep.
Disney World,
yep.
Somewhere along the way, Alaska and hunting there in Alaska, yep. Walruses.
Yes.
Much colder in Alaska, I guess.
Oh my gosh.
Potts Camp, Mississippi.
Absolutely. It was, I played around. I say I played, it felt more like less a job and more like just fun. As a dolphin trainer, I did dolphin training things, and I had a chance to work with walruses as a keeper when I was in Orlando at SeaWorld Wild Arctic. It was the name of that. And that's when I first fell in love with walruses. People don't think a lot about a walrus ever. Yeah. And I had not either until I met them face to face and realized here is this animal that's giant. They have personality plus. They are incredibly social, and they look at humans in their same social grouping.
Really?
And so I just was enamored and thought this animal's cool. And the reason how I ended up in Alaska was I had fun, I was playing, but I realized, I miss a lot of the science. And instead of going to vet school, I decided to go back to grad school. And so for graduate school, I was studying reproductive physiology, and I was incorporating all the marine mammal work that I was doing into that. So dolphins, killer whales, and then walruses. I ended up we were living in Northern California at the time, and there were 3 walruses in a zoo there that had never successfully reproduced. And I, just being the curious person I am, worked really closely with the keepers. We trained the animals to give us samples so I could test hormones. And then next thing I know, I figured out at least why this group of walruses weren't reproducing.
And that was?
And some of our farm folks listening will understand, they are short day breeders. Breeding seasons You got a horse. As the days get longer, that's when their season kicks in. If you're breeding sheep, as the days get shorter.
Okay.
And so walruses growing up in Alaska, where there's 24 hours of darkness or 24 hours of light, cue their reproduction. And when you bring them out of Alaska and down into our southern part of the states, or into the states, their cues are all off, not going to work. And so I ended up inducing reproduction into them using hormones, similar hormones that are used actually with our farm animals. And they actually successfully reproduced. And that got the attention. I published a paper, I had a lot of media coverage, and the BBC came knocking.
How about that?
And I was like, I had no idea. I just ride this crazy train. But the next thing I know, we got the green light for the documentary, and an hour-long documentary was going to be filmed about walruses and my work. It took 2 years to film, and we hopped on a plane and went to Alaska 3 different times. And I decided, one of the things that I love, and I think it's because growing up in a small town and appreciating sort of indigenous culture, the people who are living it, the people who are in the middle of it. When I had the chance, when I went up to Alaska, I said, I really want to learn from the indigenous communities, the Native Alaskans. And so that was a brand new world. The first thing I had to do was go through tribal council. I was on this tiny little island called St. Lawrence, and it's literally 30 miles from Russia. They literally can see Russia from their house, and they are Americans.
Okay.
And I'm sitting out there, and the first thing I have to do is go through their tribal council, and they speak Siberian Yupik. And so I'm sitting at the table, and they're speaking Yupik, and I have to pass. They have to grant me permission to be able to even be in their village. And they're very, very wary of outsiders. Not unlike some Mississippians as well. And I'm sitting there and they're talking, and then they look at me and they're like, I don't know why you're here. What do you think you're here for? You're just gonna, make fun of us. You're gonna, make fun of the way we live. And I was like, oh no. I said, first of all, let me tell you, I'm from Potts Camp, Mississippi. I grew up hunting and fishing. We put, what we had in our freezer was what we harvested ourselves. Your way of life, the reason why I'm here is because I want to learn from you and what you know about walruses and what you understand. And it was a brutal couple of hours. And then they said, okay, you need to step out so we can talk. And me and the film crew, British film crew, we were like, well, I don't think that went well. And I'm pretty sure we're going to end up back on that plane and out of here. And we just sat there and waited. And then the door opens and the elders come out. And the first one gives me a huge hug. He goes, welcome to our village. Wow. And I was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. And so
all this was caught on camera?
We weren't able to film the tribal council.
Okay.
But after that, we were allowed to film. And so I ended up spending time with a couple of different groups, learning about their subsistence way of life and their, the harsh environment of which they live, their tight-knit community, the struggle of modern world encroaching on these small villages where, to survive there, you have to be able to hunt. You have to be able to read the ice. You have to be able to go out and understand these things and live it. And a lot of the young people are, being drawn, what they call the big city of Nome. Nome has like a stoplight in a small hospital. That's the big city to them. And so it was beautiful. It was a really beautiful experience.
Yeah. I mean, it really sounds like it. And it has me wanting to watch, to go find
absolutely.
the
Yeah. I can help you. I can help you find that link. It does stream occasionally. And it was a pretty low budget film, but it was really popular and it did well.
Yeah.
What's the name of it?
Walrus 2-ton tusker.
2-ton tusker. My buddy and I here, we joke around during football season, and we like to say it's a top 10 tussle in Tuscaloosa. So we weren't too far off from the name of your
You were not. No.
documentary. That's really cool. And so, you're now back home in Mississippi on the coast at the Extension Center, Coastal Research and Extension Center for Mississippi State. So I thought I might lob a question or two at you that I'm sure is a novice question but it's just kind of what I'm thinking, and somebody else might be thinking the same thing.
Sounds good.
Okay, so as far as dolphins go,
Yes.
in Mississippi, that we would say these are our dolphins.
Yep.
How many different kinds? Is it one kind of dolphin? Do we have multiple kinds of dolphins?
That is a very common question, and most frequently the locals will say, "Hey, what about those porpoises?" And so actually, what we have is one species called bottlenose dolphin.
Okay.
Everyone's heard of it. If you have seen a dolphin in an aquarium doing a show, that's bottlenose dolphins.
Okay.
Very common species for that. And those are the dolphins that we find in Mississippi waters. And if you go offshore, then you're talking many more species.
Okay.
But the ones that you're going to see local are bottlenose dolphins.
Bottlenose. And that's sort of an area of expertise, and you spent a lot of time research.
I did. 8 years it took me to get my dissertation finished up with bottlenose dolphin reproduction.
Okay.
So I took dairy science concepts and I applied it to dolphins. At the time, there wasn't much known about how dolphins reproduce, their reproductive methods, anything. And so using my training skills and working with these dolphins in these aquariums, I was able to collect a really amazing amount of data to the point where when I did finish it, I understood exactly how reproduction works in dolphins, which is really fun. And so now I can apply it as I do my studies in the wild. I can apply that knowledge.
Okay. Why are our dolphins on the Mississippi coast, why are they important? Why, to the ecosystem, why do we need them?
Sure. Yeah. That's a great question. And that's one of the things that Mississippi State knew, that I was I have a broad range of interest, and sometimes I almost seem a little chaotic, but One Health is what they tasked me with.
Okay.
Coastal One Health program. And so under the One Health umbrella, we are all connected. Our human health is connected to, the environmental health, and dolphins in particular are almost swimming humans, essentially. They are our canary in the coal mine. They are what we can look to understand what's happening in the environment, in their water. And we can say, all right, well, if these dolphins are sick from these particular conditions, then humans can also suffer from that.
Okay. All right. So do our dolphins, do they have predators? Like, what is a threat to them and kind of where they are on the food chain, so to speak?
Yeah. So everything in nature is a balance. And for our dolphins, they are choosing to live in an estuary coastal habitat. And when you take a look at it, it is a bit of a gamble because you have, human encroachment, you have boats. But the biggest thing that these dolphins have to deal with is the salinity. Okay. Dolphins should be in saltwater.
Saltwater, yeah.
Our dolphins at any given point can swim up a river and be in some fresh. They spend a lot of time in brackish water. They spend a lot of time in low salinity. And that is one of the trade-offs that they have. They have to be pretty strong from an immune and health standpoint to withstand those challenges to their bodies. And so they don't have predators, but they do have those environmental challenges. Mm-hmm. And so if a dolphin is sick through, whatever mechanism got them sick, they are going to be less likely to survive that illness due to some of those stressors from the environment. And so predator-wise, really nothing aside from humans, of course, where we tend to, create some trouble, whether it be oil spills or, unfortunately back like the Bonnie Carey spillway was a huge challenge to our dolphin population. That was trillions of gallons of fresh water that just dumped like a tap into the sound. And they went from at least being able to have some salinity to having zero salinity for months. And the other question or the comment I often get is, well, they're dolphins. They live in the ocean. They'll just swim away. But what we know is they don't. This is home to them. And for our dolphins in Mississippi, there may as well not be an ocean out there because home is home, and it's a very small home range of where they know how to find food and where they know how to navigate. And so the idea of them just swimming away is not even a concept in their mind. And so they just sat there while that fresh water came in. And, some survived, but 350 dolphins died over the course of that event. And so that's one of the other things that I am hoping to do is show, okay, we need to do a better job of understanding these resident populations. We can actually identify individual dolphins through their dorsal fin. Taking a picture of their fin that sticks out of the water is like a fingerprint.
Really?
And then we can start to make a catalog and over time say, all right, this particular dolphin population never leaves, say, Bay St. Louis area or, Pascagoula area. And if there is an event that's going to happen like the Bonnie Carey or something similar, then we can anticipate the problems that may arise.
Okay. Why is the salinity so important to a dolphin?
So salinity, their physiology, the way their body is put together is all about a balance with fresh and salt.
Okay.
And so if a dolphin that is made, their physiology, everything about them, their kidney function, the way their skin is put together, their entire world, their physiology is to survive salt water.
Okay.
And so fresh water is something that is abnormal to their body system. And so if they're sitting in fresh water too long, literally too much fresh water can go into their body. Their kidneys aren't able to process that amount. But it is one of the questions that I am looking into a little deeper is understanding exactly how a dolphin, an estuary dolphin, recognizes that they're in fresh water, brackish water, or salt. And we assume that they can tell the difference. They swim up into the rivers and then they do turn around and swim back out. But how much are they consciously aware that they are in this different salinity? So I'm actually working with some dolphin aquariums where we're training dolphins to tell us if they know salt versus fresh.
Okay.
It's pretty cool.
That is cool.
About how many dolphins would you say we, have around Mississippi? Like, are they good populations? Like, are they low? And then I guess the other part of that is, do we have other mammals besides dolphins out there? I know a lot of people know about like manatees. Is there anything else that we're not aware of?
Yeah. So I'll answer the first question. We have no idea how many dolphins we have. Okay. Now, we have a lot of guesses, and we have folks that guess. We can just all logically look out and say, we have a lot of dolphins out there because you pretty much see them.
Yeah.
And you see them year round. But there has not been a proper population assessment done in a very long time. NOAA is required every 5 years to attempt a population assessment. And they have their methods and standards, and that's sort of what we abide by. But their estimates are maybe around 6,000 in the summer, 3,000 in the winter. And then you'll have other people out there saying that we have, 20,000 dolphins. So it's somewhere between 3,000 and 20,000 dolphins. And that's one of the things that I'm also encouraging, our politicians and our local people to say, this is a resource that we have that, some fishermen may get a little grumpy that they're, stealing some bait or things, but this is an incredible resource Mississippi has, and it's worth spending some time to study. And I'm hoping that we will. But as far as the population, they're considered stable. They're considered, the numbers are good, although NOAA does have them classified as some of strong interest to get more data on, just because estuaries are this dynamic habitat that, could potentially see problems, especially as humans continue to encroach. So yeah, it's a good question. And then as far as the other marine mammals, we have manatees. We do have manatees. And that's another exciting topic that I'm happy to be here involved in. For a long time, it was just assumed that manatees maybe occasionally get lost and show up.
Yeah.
And I've had the privilege of working with our colleagues in Alabama who have actually started a manatee program to understand manatees in Alabama. So you're talking Dog River, Mobile Bay, literally. Of course, animals don't understand state lines as much as we think that they put on the brakes. And what I learned was, unlike in Florida, where you have this clear water and you look down and you see all the the giant potatoes under the water.
Right, yeah.
Manatees are gentle, grazing sea cows. Our water is not conducive to seeing a manatee. The only time that you will see a manatee is if you happen to be in a boat and they take a breath right beside you and their nose comes up, they take a breath, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
And so in Alabama, we had a plane flying over as we were doing counts, and I'm on a boat, and they're like, there's 6 manatees to your 1 o'clock. And I'm like, I would have never told you there was a manatee to our 1 o'clock if it hadn't been for the plane seeing it.
Uh-huh.
And then they're like, and there's another group over to this side, and they were everywhere.
And you would have no idea.
No clue. And so I feel like in Mississippi, we do get sightings, and we're collecting that data, but there's going to be a lot more manatees than people are aware of, just because they're hard to find.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm excited. Manatees are really, really cool. And of course they're endangered, and we need to understand why they're seeking out our habitats and what can we do to ensure that they have the habitat that they need. They're doing a great job grazing and keeping everything in balance.
Manatees, different regarding the salinity of the water? Like
Yes.
they're not as...
Yes, manatees are able to handle salt or fresh water. They can go back and forth, no problem.
No problem. Okay.
No problem. And they are all about water temperature. Even though a manatee seems like a big fat animal, and they do have some fat, they don't have blubber. Blubber is an organ, essentially, that keeps marine mammals warm. That is an organ that is working to make sure that they can thermoregulate. Manatees do not have blubber, and so they must have warm water. And by warm water, 65 plus. And they really prefer it to be even warmer. And so in Florida, they seek out the warm water springs and by warm, again, it's like 65. And when you go swim in it, it doesn't feel warm, but
Right.
for a manatee, it's a nice temperature. And so that is their Achilles heel, so to speak, is the temperature. But they can handle the salt and the fresh, no problem.
Yeah. And I know I'm jumping around here. It's just something I thought. I was thinking about your time in Alaska.
Yeah.
What was your diet like? Like what did you eat while you were in Alaska with those people and what they ate? Did you eat what they ate?
Well, we went up there. I went up there with an open mind and prepared to eat whatever I needed to.
Mm-hmm.
Although I will say we packed lots and lots of camping, dried food bags with us just in case we needed to go into that. And when we got there, they actually all said, we understand this diet would be very different for you. And so they took me into, for example, they have holes dug into the permafrost where it's basically their freezers just in the ground, a hole in the ground. And you open it up and it's fermented meat. It's fermented walrus meat in the hole in the ground. And there's bacteria and things, of course, causing the fermentation, but there's no pathogens the way that it works. Now, as some of their temperatures rise, the pathogens start to come in. But everything there is just, they are adapted to eating that. And they all collectively agreed that I probably should not, even though I went in well prepared and ready. Yeah. We did eat some of they were able to collect some fresh, there was a particular wind movement and they had some invertebrates wash ashore, some different mussels and some of those shellfish, and I did try some of that.
Okay,
it was cool.
Okay, on our coast here at the Coastal Research and Extension Center for Mississippi State, are there students there, like year round, certain parts of the year?
So it is a little bit of a different program. We have mostly graduate students, although we do have some undergrads that spend the summers with us. We have undergraduate interns that get to come down and help catch sharks and do some of our surveys. Most of the ones that are permanently there are graduate students. So we have a lot of master's and PhD students.
Okay. So some students, what'd you do this summer? I went to the beach, hung out, went to a few clubs. What'd you do? I went and caught sharks.
Exactly. And it's so cool. If you our group, our shark group, I keep going back to them just because they have it's a really, really amazing program, but they long line. They go out and put out a long line, and it's nothing like being out offshore on a vessel, pulling up a long line and seeing a hammerhead, which, by the way, we have a very robust, decent population of hammerheads right off our coast.
Wow. Wow.
Which is so cool. I learned that there from them. But yes, we do have it. Everyone should, if they're interested, check out our website. And we usually put out posts for those summer internships.
And that website is?
Coastal Research and Extension Center. And I will need to give you the exact.
Okay. We'll find it and pop it up on the screen.
Pop it up. That would be great. Yeah. Because I think it's like.
It'll be Chip.
Yeah,
He'll do it.
I don't think it's a simple one. I think I forget.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great opportunity for our students. And Coastal One Health is getting geared up to start doing some internships. And also very excited to announce that Mississippi State owns a 34-foot offshore research vessel.
Oh, wow. State owns a boat.
State owns a boat. We had some small boats, and I got down there and I was like, to study marine mammals, I need to get on a boat. And they were like, yeah, you do. And I said, what are we going to do about that? And I love them. I love Mississippi State. I love my college. So yeah, it took a little bit, but we were able to get the funds. And so now we have this beautiful offshore capable 34-foot research vessel that will live in Pass Christian in the harbor there. And this is going to be able to open up a world of opportunity for us to get past the barrier islands and do some of this really cool offshore work. That's where all the really cool species of marine mammals live.
Very cool.
I've got one last question. Have you ran into anything that just kind of caught you off guard while you're out there doing your research? You're like, I didn't know this was out there, or I didn't expect to see this.
Well, I think that it is always, I am always in awe. I think coming back to Mississippi, I lived in California, I lived in Mexico, I lived in Florida, I lived in Las Vegas. I've traveled the world. I've seen lots of things. Coming back home to Mississippi, what caught me off guard was the absolute amazing diversity of wildlife and habitats that we have here. And what an incredible, hunting and fishing aside, no offense to hunting and fishing, because I understand, but we have, Alabama brags about having all this diversity, and we have the same diversity, if not more, in a little fun competition there. But I would love to see Mississippi take a little more pride, I think is the word, in this incredible diversity of life that we have, and really helping people connect that we are literally all connected to the health of our environment. And so same thing with the Gulf of Mexico, Northern Gulf and and Mississippi Sound. The sheer number of marine mammals that we have out there that have essentially not had any amount of study. We have a resident population of sperm whales right off, like maybe 60 miles off of Gulfport.
Really?
A resident population of sperm whales. We have the only photographed living giant squid in all of North America right off of our coast.
Wow.
And so we know that we're having sperm whales with epic battles of giant squid. That's happening in our backyard, I'm like, it's crazy. And I just want, anybody who will listen, I said, we can take ownership of this. Mississippi has the best access to that Mississippi Delta, DeSoto Canyon, that magic place right there where all these marine mammals are trying to survive. And we have the most endangered whale in the world, the Rice's whale, that even though technically their habitat is considered off of the Florida Panhandle, NOAA is still working to try to figure out their exact territory. It does look like they too will probably end up off of our shores, at least some of their lifespan. So I think that if this was California, it would already all be studied.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing about Mississippi is I love my state, but the opportunities are immense.
Yeah. Yeah. Pardon the pun, but in terms of research, kind of uncharted waters.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's pretty, it's uncharted. Yeah. It's, there's so many needs, and there's no reason why we can't have our Mississippi kids that love marine mammals grow up and study marine mammals. Yeah. I would much rather train our homegrown kids to do that than have to import them from California. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I lived there for 8 years, so I can bash on them a little bit.
But you're also a shining example Potts Camp,
Yep.
Mississippi, all around the world,
Yep.
and back home to Mississippi. And you know, forgive me for kind of putting words in your mouth, but you seem really happy to be where you are.
I mean, there was a time where I was like, I got to get out of here. I've got to go where I need to get away from Potts Camp for a while. Yeah. And then, you know, of course, as you mature, you realize, wow, you know, this is everything that I ever really wanted. But I wouldn't trade my travel experiences for the world, because it gave me a whole new insight into, you know, it's helping me be a better researcher today.
Great to meet you. Really cool to get to hear the stories, learn a little bit about marine mammals, just a little bit of what you know. And so we appreciate you joining us here on the show.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
She is Dr. Holley Muraco at the Mississippi State Research Center down on the coast. We appreciate you listening, and we'll see you outdoors.